Hey everyone, this is Brittney with Vista. I've been with Vista for about 2 years now, and I talk to body shop owners, managers, estimators, techs all day, every day. We felt that there's so many questions still in the collision industry surrounding liability and just industry trends, everything that's going on right now. So we wanted to bring a little insight into the industry. And so we have Sean Preston. He's with Coverall Law. We wanted to bring him in to get some industry expert opinions on some of those things that are happening. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Sean.
Thank you, Brittany. Sean Preston, I'm the managing attorney of Coverall Law. We serve collision repair shops and only collision repair shops. A number of our repairers, they get into, ADAS. They have maybe related ADAS facilities or something next door. A couple of them have done some ADAS within the shop, but this is a very important topic. It's top of mind right now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, spending the time with us to go over all of these things and bring that insight into the industry. So I wanted to get started with how have you seen the industry change over your time with Coverall Law?
I think it's a professionalism in the ownership that is really picking up, and that's really encouraging. So our big goal with Coverall Law is to bring Fortune 500 level solutions and make them available to independently owned shops. Our solutions are really boots on the ground, legal solutions. And then our desire is to operate within the legal, accounting, and tax space. So it'll never be our job to tell somebody how to run their business. It's our job to help them, though. And, they're still the boss, they're still in charge, and we just want to give them options and those resources necessary to do it right. So what I've seen more recently is more and more shops knowing their numbers, right? Working with people like our friend Mark at Profit Builders, these 20 groups, whether it's the Spartans, Dave Luhr's group, or even, Collision Hub probably has some stuff too. There's a number of different groups that are working on how do you make informed decisions about your business. I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about business owners. My background's all corporate law and helping businesses. And so the little bit of change that we've been trying to bring is like, hey, that's awesome. If you started on the accounting side and knowing your numbers, what do you need to look at on the legal side? Because there's a reason that the insurers on the other side of the table have giant legal departments. They wouldn't
Right.
have them if they didn't pay for themselves, right? And every Fortune 500 company is going to have a big old legal department. They use it. How do they use it? And how can you use it? And how can we make that available to you in a way that makes sense?
So, do you see more shop owners being more conscious of the legal aspects of owning and managing their body shops?
Definitely, and definitely since John Eagle. I think John Eagle really highlighted that every dollar coming through the shop represents unlimited liability. And so they said, oh man, the insurer is putting pressure on me to do this, that, or the other. The insurer is not going to be the one held responsible when something goes wrong. And
Right.
anything can go wrong. My first case in this industry was because I had friends at a body shop and they got sued by an insurer over something that went wrong after a repair. The insurer said, you touched it, it must have been you. And it was a bizarre thing. And I was like, nope. So the insurer also sued Jiffy Lube. You touched it, it must have been you. And so
Yeah.
they said, man,
Wow.
I'm so exposed. And how do I protect myself? Well, my background in corporate law and legal strategy, it centers a lot around contracts and contract law. I was number one in my class in contracts. And I said, you can solve a whole lot of things right from the get-go with the right contract. So that's where we started digging in.
So, you actually came into this from a personal experience.
Right. So I'm from Washington State. My wife's from Massachusetts. So of course we live in Massachusetts. And I was driving across the country. I hit a deer in Montana. So I hit a deer in Montana. I went to 3 shops before I could find somebody with a pry bar big enough to bend my bumper out so it wasn't dragging on my front left wheel. And I knew the town that we were coming to. I'd been here before, and I remember seeing this shop and wondering about it. I'd never been to a collision shop before. And so I just went in, met the guys. So a tech owns the shop, runs the shop. He's paying for the business, he's paying rent on the business. And, over time and being friends with these guys, you just realize what a tight spot this industry is in. That
Right.
a tech, the numbers make it so hard for a tech to buy the business. There's so many things to fix. And the thing is, on the other side of it, holding the checkbook for, 98% of your business are insurance companies. And it seems
Right.
like every few months there, there's a new supervisor in there trying to make a new record profit and changes things up a little bit. We don't pay for that anymore. Oh, you're the
Right.
only one asking for this. So we got a lot of things to fix, and that's what Coverall Law has been doing just the last, few years.
That's amazing. It really is, especially since you came to this in a personal way. It's like whenever you have a personal story behind it, it means a little bit more. It's closer to your heart whenever you understand because you've been through it. You said that the body shop owner was sued by the carrier. Something that I hear weekly for sure, I would go as far as daily even whenever I'm talking to body shops about liability and calibrations specifically. They say that when they are subletting the calibrations, they're doing so because it protects their liability. They are no longer liable for anything that has to do with that calibration because another company is doing that for them. What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, that's not entirely correct, because that is a broad sweeping statement. The only way to not have any liability in a repair is to never touch the repair and to never do the repair. Talking about subletting, consider it like being the general contractor. So you are managing this repair. You need to act reasonably. Now, first stop in acting reasonably is going to be like issue spotting. So I see that this is needed. And let's say it has to do with ADAS calibrations. Cool, that's needed. Where are we going to go to do it? So if you, as the shop, the general contractor, choose the crappiest, cheapest option where it's like you knew or should have known that like that probably wasn't going to be done right, I don't think that you can reasonably expect to escape liability. Now, you could take some steps. You could sign some sort of indemnity agreement with that company. You could make them show you proof of their, insurance, their coverage, they're properly collateralized, that company is going to hold up and that they then have to bail you out. Nothing's going to stop you from being named in a lawsuit, right? Because if there's a lawsuit, they're going to want to name everybody. So really what you want to look at instead is if you're potentially going to be named in a lawsuit down the road, why are you going to say, I shouldn't be here? And so acting reasonably, finding the right shop that has, for the ADAS, that has the right resources, the right training. If you say, hey, that's going to be the ADAS shop we ship it out to, go visit them. Is there floor, yeah, like
Yeah.
how are they set up? Do they have a big enough space? How are the walls painted? How are they using the targets? How are they shooting those targets? Is the floor both flat and level? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things to doing it right. And I think when you visit a shop, you get a feeling of what kind of shop you're in.
Right. So if a shop has the option to bring in the calibrations and is properly trained and has all the documentation to support that the calibration was done successfully, the estimate was scrubbed properly, do you feel from a liability standpoint that it is better to go that way, or is subletting, about the same? What does that look like for a shop should something happen where they are named in a lawsuit?
Well, so I mean, how we look at it, or how it is probably going to look if there is an incident after the fact, and they want to look at what the shop did. I mean, number one, whomever is doing the ADAS work, they need to document why you did it, what you did, and that it got done. And when you look, when a court looks back at that, they're looking at a level of professional responsibility. When you want to pull apart whether a professional acted reasonably or not, there's judgment calls in there. And this is no exception. So the way it was described to me one time, because this applies to doctors, lawyers, and it's going to apply here too, is if your options were like A, B, or C, and in hindsight, B would have been the best one, but you chose A or C, you're going to be okay because a reasonable professional in good standing in the same circumstances may have done the same thing. Now, if you're down at TUV or heaven forbid Z, if you're way out
Right.
there, it's like, what was this person thinking? It's not going
Right.
to work. So, how do you document it? Now, as far as a shop bringing that into the shop and doing it, I don't recommend that it be done from the same entity. The collision repair industry is a highly regulated industry. I want ADAS out of that. So there's nothing wrong with creating a second entity, but you got to treat it like a second entity. So you can set that up, you can rent it a bay, and you can be subletting to an entity that you have some relation to. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that. And
Right.
it really, in business, it really does make a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to silo your risks. That organization needs to be what Mark, he likes the term responsibly insured. It needs to be sufficiently insured, right? And then it needs to be properly collateralized. There's all these rules, and the rules go state by state. That's my thought. And if we want to go deeper into that, I would talk about how we set that entity up, who sets the entity up, because I have seen some really bad cases with accountants and bookkeepers setting up LLCs for people.
There's
Yeah.
so much that goes into all of that, all of the LLCs and the,
Right. I
yeah,
could create a company by lunchtime if I needed to. I could go out there and throw one together and give the state a couple
right.
$100 and have a new company. That
Exactly.
would be like being able to ride a skateboard down the freeway, like completely unprotected. My passion for independently owned businesses stems from my upbringing in my family's bookkeeping and tax firm, right?
Oh,
I
okay.
like a lot of our shops, I started cleaning the floors at 7 years old, and is every day after school from 13 on, that I was there serving small business owners. So that's my passion. Now, our firm, we're not allowed. No one's allowed to create a company because I've seen it done poorly so many times. Have
Mhm.
an attorney help set you up. Don't be a skateboard rolling down there. Have an operating agreement, right?
Right.
Attorney, do a veil piercing analysis and test of your company. What are all the things I need to do under my state laws in order to be safe? I had a wrongful death case 4 or 5 years ago that the company that ran where this little girl died, they were actually administratively dissolved at the time the accident happened because the accounting firm that set them up didn't keep up with the annual notices for the state. So, um, yeah. I'd say bring it outside the shop, but make sure you're doing it right.
So what are kind of along those lines, what are some common misconceptions that you see or even mistakes that you see owners and managers making as far as their business goes?
So, I mean, we already talked about kind of the entity. What does the entity look like? Why is this entity legitimate? You can't treat it like your own personal piggy bank. You have to treat it like it's its own thing. Otherwise, any liability that comes through there will reach right through that entity into your pocket, and your house is on the line, your kid's college is on the line, all that stuff. So treat it like its own entity, do the right thing. Within the business, what I've seen a lot of shops not really appreciating, I guess, the level of liability, how important their work is, and
Mhm.
they need to be compensated for that work too. I want to say that in the same breath. It's BS, what they've been through last decades for
It
decades.
really is.
My predecessor served the Massachusetts Association for 40 years. At his very first meeting, this is in the 70s, shows up and the guy is sitting around the table for the Mass Auto Body Association. They say, "Yeah, what can you do about the labor rate?" And this is back in the 70s. And so we just
Oh,
have
so it's been a thing forever then.
stuff over and over again. Yeah,
Right.
it's a tough industry,
Yeah.
but not appreciating the level of liability, not believing that there's anything you can do about it. This is your business. Because every dollar coming through your shop represents unlimited liability, you have the right to own the terms and conditions around every dollar. You can
Right.
actually write the rules, but you got to know how. So figuring it out then within your business. And a lot of this stuff is, I don't know about business 101 stuff, but it's definitely business school, B school stuff.
Hmm.
And it's like, how are you going to make money? Where's the cash going to come from? How are you going to get paid? Who's going to pay you? These are things that within your legal structure you can solve. How are you going to do the repair? Who's empowered to do the safe and proper repair? What are your policies going to be when it comes to part choice? When it comes to OE procedures, safety inspections, like what stance are you going to take? And that's what these these business owners, the ones that are having the most success are the ones that are saying, I have to extract myself so that I'm no longer working in the business, but working on the business. That's where
Absolutely.
they take that view. So many of these guys, and maybe my buddy here in town is one, is just like, I like doing this work. I want to keep doing this work and I'll own the business and do this work. You sign yourself up for a job. And,
Right.
not that there's anything wrong with it, but just call it what it is. Like you've signed yourself up for a job. And so it makes it really hard to steer the ship when you're, down below getting supplies and stuff like that. You can't see a thing.
Exactly. And I find it really interesting that you say that because that's something that we talk about often is the importance of owners taking control of their shops. What we do specifically is we actually empower shops to not only bring everything in-house for that control aspect of things, we give them all of the training because exactly what you said, you have to make sure that you know what you're doing whenever you whenever you do that. It's important.
Yeah.
But the getting paid part, that is something that I run into constantly as a sales rep. So we give body shops sublet invoicing. We're a remote service. We give body shops sublet invoicing. And what that does is it helps them get paid.
Mhm.
So many body shops I hear when I talk to the owners are totally fine with their 20% margins, that their 20% markups. Um,
Mhm.
and it always baffles me because you're running you're running a business. And I ask them, is your business for profit? Are you running a nonprofit? Like, joking around. Um, because I feel like so many times they get so stuck in the business, just like what you said. They're worried about parts. They're worried about their tech that didn't show up. They're worried about, all of the things, all of the logistics. A lot of times I'll call an owner and he's in the paint booth because his painter was out that day. And they forget about these things. They forget that you have to get paid. Um, for your work. You have to do your work, you have to do it properly, and you have to get paid to run a successful business.
Mhm.
It's interesting to hear that you see the same thing even on your side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is the true key. Like if you're not asserting control over your business, someone else will.
Right.
And that's what they felt in this industry, right?
Exactly. And you said something once, hopefully you remember it because I'll probably not quote it correctly. In some of our previous conversations, it really stood out to me, and it was one of my favorite quotes I think I've heard. I wrote it down somewhere.
Mhm.
But it was when quality is number one. Do you remember the rest of it? When quality is number one, control is you. You
Yeah,
wrote
yeah,
it down
yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
like,
trying to find
right.
it.
If quality is your number one, control can't be sacrificed or
That's what it
something.
was.
Yeah.
I knew you would come up with it. When quality is number one, control cannot be sacrificed. And I thought that just really just kind of encompasses everything that you do on your end and our end as well. When the body shop is in control of their finances, of what they put out. Um,
Of their business, of the transaction, of their money, of their legal status, right? So we've got a shop right now, great shop, Spartan shop and stuff, but they got an insurer, coming at them and sent them a demand letter. The insurer's got in-state counsel that is coming after them. But this shop's been working with Coverall Law for a couple of years. So that one goes away with a pretty simple, pretty easy letter of like, sorry, you can't. We took that away from you. Like, there's nothing more to be said,
right,
You're
right.
wrong, and you won't make it any farther than you've just come right now. Hmm.
So what did you give the shop to be able to stand so firmly against a carrier that was coming after them?
We build out a legal infrastructure is what we do. So the same kind of thing that I designed. My last corporate job was with Rolls-Royce. Before that, John Deere, and served a number of different companies in the startup space. But what we want for them is we want that, how you own that terms and conditions. The way we do that is with your initial customer documentation. And we don't want a contract or an agreement amongst, equals. We want a standardized form. I'll be traveling tomorrow. I'll get a rental car. I'm going to sign a standardized form for a Hertz rental car that every line in there says they win and I lose if anything doesn't go according to plan. And so that's what you mean, what I mean by really owning those terms and conditions. So when we build something that's specific to them where they can own those terms and conditions, when they really assert that the repair doesn't involve an insurer really at all, it's between them and the customer. An insurer is a
Right.
bill payer, that's relevant. And then that true and correct final invoice. Everything they did, nothing they didn't at their rates, that needs to be legitimized. So we build out that infrastructure. The legal, the contracts and stuff that we build for them, that's really shop specific because shops run the whole gamut, right? For example, there's shops that will always collect from the customer anything an insurer doesn't pay. There are shops that will never collect from the customer what the insurer
Right.
doesn't pay. And then the different fights that we have for these shops, for example, you mentioned, sublet markup. So that's one of the things that we would put in their documentation that owner agrees to sublet costs with markup because your money is not free, your time administrative efforts are not free. You're running a business. And and if you're not going to get sublet markup, then you really do need to bring all this stuff in-house, right? Because otherwise you're just giving away a piece of the repair. But you're managing this repair. You don't have to do everything. You just have to oversee it all, and you need to be compensated for that. Like that's a legitimate business. So
Absolutely.
we build that out. Then what we do is we test. We test these approaches. We test these legal tools across 100 locations across the US. We started in Massachusetts, and then over the past 6 to 8 months, we've now been expanding beyond Massachusetts. And so everything gets tested in court, tested every day as we just help them in their dealings with insurers, anything that comes up. And then they're called the Forever Forms. It's the Forever Forms system because they're updated for life. So at Rolls-Royce, once a year, I would go in and have with outside counsel, and let's talk about updating our contract. Hey, what changes in the law or regulations do we need to know about? What court cases came through that are affecting our industry or those laws or regulations? And here's some issues. We kept a list over the last year of any issues that came up. Let's address those. Once a year, spend about 10 grand and do those. Instead, we've built a system where they are continuously improved and have been continuously improved for about 2.5 years now from the Massachusetts version. And now it is the end of June 2026, and we are entering our 12th state. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's awesome. I feel like it's a very needed service for the body shops because I don't think that there's wide variety or a lot of them that really truly understand the legal aspect of things, the liability specifically. So that's great.
Well, and it's really only a matter of time before something comes up. So
Right.
when my buddies got sued, I had just moved here and I was like, well, I need to find a job anyways. Let me see how I can help you. Let's figure something out. My wife, we just had our third kid, and
Oh,
I wanted something
good.
closer to home. But
Yeah.
so
Oh,
they
you
said
said you just had it back then, or you just had it now?
back
Oh, I
then,
thought you
yeah,
were talking
yeah,
about
no,
now.
she's
Okay.
5 now.
Oh,
She's 5
gotcha.
now.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, so I am like, all right, let's get this figured out. They said, can you help me? I said, if I can't, I'll find you somebody that can. And I set out to find a law firm to deal with this kind of stuff. There's nobody. There's like no law firms that deal with this stuff. There's a ton that want personal injury, bodily injury, right? Like, oh, did you get hit by a big semi truck? We want to talk to you, stuff like
Right.
that. But they won't touch the property damage claim. They won't touch the repair. And that is really telling for what this industry has been through for decades. So I found one guy that helps towing companies get paid their bills and does stuff nationwide. So I hop in with him. He offered stuff for collision repair shops. Problem is, he didn't have any answers for collision repair shops. Every collision repair shop would come in, and our answer was the same every time. It was pull out your wallet. We need to make this go away.
Oh, okay.
Every collision repair shop that came in was being reactive, whether it's I didn't get paid my invoice or hey, I got this certified letter in the mail from this attorney and they're claiming this, that, and the other. Or like my buddies, I got sued. So just getting sued, all right, now you need a lawyer. Getting this demand letter, the demand letters would claim, because it's a highly regulated industry, you mentioned that earlier, right? Here's all these things you didn't do. And now we got to try and prove we did all those things. None of them had. Every single one of the shops was sitting in a glass house. I'm like, cool. You couldn't fight your way out of this if you wanted to. We have to make this go
Right.
away. And
Yeah.
so the guy, the attorney I was working with there, I said, look, you got this towing thing done up. The towing side, it made sense, right? If a towing company cleans up a tractor trailer rollover on the freeway, you got an 80, 90 plus $1,000 bill, you're going to hire an attorney to chase 90 grand. Fair.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you're short paid $900, $1,900, $2,900, like that doesn't make sense to hire a lawyer. So I said, you take the towing. I'm going to go figure out something for these collision shops. That's where I started Coverall Law. It was a little over 3 years ago. I started it. I was like, I don't know how we're going to solve it, but we're going to solve it. And now today, we have the ability to bundle claims together so we can actually start talking about some real money. We've got, like I said, about 100 shops, using the solution right now. Each one can take a piece off and it helps the whole collective. Like there's a lot of really cool solutions that have come from this, and we've got more solutions on the way. So we're going to be at SEMA this year, announcing our next solution. The whole idea is, can we take a Fortune 500 level strategy, make it affordable to an independent business, and 10 times more effective than how it's used in Fortune 500 circles. And that's essentially what the Forever Form system is. Because a Fortune 500 company could have top legal forms and strategy, they could even have it updated continuously. But what they don't have is dozens and dozens of other locations and companies testing all the tools and strategies and feeding that back in. And that's what Coverall Law does for the members.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's definitely needed for sure. That's awesome that you've grown so much too in just 3 years, 12 states. Very cool. Are you in 12 states now, or you said it's projected?
We're in 11 or 12, we go state by state. So we've got a compliance team. Let's see, it was up to 5 people working compliance. It used to, when it started, it was just me, yeah, on the compliance, but except for the first one, right? Well, so the Forever Form started with 7 industry attorneys. I think there's only about a dozen across the nation over the last 30, 40 years that have helped this industry. But we put together a group of us and I spent 7 months kind of putting together our wish list. A lot of the compliance stuff I worked on, because that was a good bit of my background, is helping with regulatory compliance for a company. So that's where you start. You got to make sure you're protected, right? Because the way these regulations are written, they're part of each state's Consumer Protection Act. And so the failure to follow even a single one of them means you're dead in the water. The judge's hands are tied and you're just out of luck. So right now we are launching New York. That'll be our 12th state. And I think it's about ready for my review. So I think next month they'll be up and running.
So speaking of New York, they just passed legislation back in January, I believe, that any missed calibration is a $2,500 fine. Have you heard of that yet? Are you prepared for whenever you go into the
Right?
New
No,
York?
I mean I know it. It's on our tracker. So every state that we are in, what we have is we have like a legal tracker. So it's all the laws and regulations. That's where we start. But then we go into the case law. What cases affect the industry? What cases actually interpret those laws and regulations? Because there's different ways to read a sentence there, right? And so it's one thing what you see in black and white. It's another thing what a judge says that means. And then from there, we go into different issues and stuff we want to attack. So that one's definitely captured in our tracker. The only ADAS firms that we help are because there's some crossover in ownership with a collision repair shop that's a
Oh,
member of ours. We have helped build a couple of ADAS shops where we talk about how do you build it right, make sure that you're protected and such. But it is because those two were both started by Forever Forms members.
What we just talked about, the New York new legislation, 2,500 bucks. How would a shop avoid that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way that a collision shop goes looking up the OE procedures. So you want that to be part of the file, including the date that you looked it up. So if it is October, 14th, and you just had the same vehicle, same year, make, and model with the same damage that you looked up on October 4th, 10 days ago, you're not going to use the same one. You got to go get it again because engineers are famous for liking to tweak stuff. So,
Right.
so yeah, documenting that you got it there. One of the concepts that we talk about where it comes to getting paid, if you want to get paid under insurance contract, there's an idea of a super bill. So this speaks to both payment and protection. And when you give somebody a super bill, that's where a customer's paid you, and so they have that paid in full invoice. And then there's two other things they need. They need the research that everything regarding everything that was done there, why that should have been done, and then they need evidence that it was needed and evidence that it was done.
Gotcha.
So, and for your question, just on the protection side, though it works for payment as well, is what what came out? What came out of Vista? What came out of everything that you're supposed to do? What authority did you reasonably rely on? And then from there, it's what's the evidence? Yep. Here's the estimate that was scrubbed, here's the codes that ran, and then evidence that it was done. There's some shops that say, hey, for every $10,000 of damage, I want 100 photos, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So you're able to document that.
So documentation is the most important in that type of situation to make sure that you aren't inadvertently being fined thousands of dollars.
Show that you acted reasonably. Yeah.
Right.
Show that you did what you knew you had to do.
That makes sense. It seems pretty easy too, especially an estimate scrub. That's like a
Yeah.
couple of seconds,
Hmm.
and it just gives you a report.
Yep. And I mean, and so when New York added that in there, the potential for a $2,500 fine for missing one, what they
Mhm.
just did, in my mind, is they just increased the value of doing the calibration. So when you charge what you charge and insurers don't really want to pay, I'd be like, no, 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 this is important. I have to do it right. Not just because somebody's life is on the line. I'd have a $2,500 fine for missing it. So if you've got a research fee, software fee, access fee, stuff like that, it's because every single time I have to do it and I get paid for the resources that I put out there.
Absolutely. Do you have any suggestions on how shops, or have you seen your shops be successful in one way or the other in getting those invoices paid when the insurance is pushing back?
Right. So that is something that we help our members build out. So for me, um, I served in the Army right out of high school, and one of the things they taught me was pace. So when you are planning an operation, you want to have backup plans, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. And so what we will build with our members is what's your primary way that you go about getting paid? If that doesn't work, what's alternate? What are you going to do? How are you going to escalate things? How are you going to assert where you are? Past that, the contingency and then the emergency. I don't want any of our members having to pay anything. There's no surprise bills with us, but you can hire us to go chase something for you if you want. I don't want them going there until we get to emergency. So the best thing I can give folks is options when it comes to getting paid. So whether it is the customer paying and you give them all that documentation so they can go get reimbursed, whether it's holding the vehicle, or whether you're taking something on, an assignment of sorts from the customer to go chase it yourself. And within each one of those, you kind of flesh that out of what those options look like. The biggest thing for all these shops, for any organization, I think really what they need to be looking at, I bring it down to just these three basic buckets. And all of our training, our resources usually speaks somewhere between one of or a mixture of these three buckets. And the first one is the ultimate legal high ground. I tell my attorney friends I have the best job in the world because my clients are just right. I'm not a criminal defense attorney who is trying to defend people who are obviously wrong. Every one of our shops matches our values of quality, integrity, and mission. We've only ever had to drop one member from the program. he wasn't committing fraud, but he was flirting with it. He was being sneaky. And I was like, oh no, you never have to do that. Don't make me look like an a-hole, right? Because our attorneys know, like everything is above board. You will be right simply because you're right. Then this, so ultimate legal high ground, second, and that goes to your pricing too, that goes to your SOPs, like everything, how you do what you do. Number two, stakeholder management. How do you interact with other people, whether it's the sublet services, your own team, insurers, your customers? How do you manage expectations? Because you train other people on what's okay and how to treat you. Like that's just true for life.
Absolutely.
It's true for marriage. It's true for parenting. It's true for everything, right? And it's
Yeah.
true in this. So, stakeholder management, how are we going to do that? The third one is all about cash. It's cash collection. How do you collect it? How do you account for it in a way that is as tax advantaged as possible, right? We don't want to leave any money on the table, but that's that PACE program. How are you going to do it? And there's some good options in there too.
So, how are your customers, your shops dealing with the carriers that are saying, no, I'm not going to pay that sublet invoice, or I'm only paying $250, even though they've subletted a calibration out and they had $1,000 bill? How are they getting paid by the carriers?
I mean, any number of ways. There's not just one way. We all agree that customers shouldn't be out anything more than their deductible, so
Right.
long as everything you did was related to that loss event, that loss event was accepted under a valid claim, and that there are if it's a third party, it's within policy limits, right? There's all the little caveats. But if the customer's paying you, then they need to be reimbursed. They need to be made whole. And so if it's a first party claim and the insurer is not promptly reimbursing them, why not? That's a problem. If the insurer is offering less than the full amount due, why? You got to give an explanation. You look at your state's Unfair Claims Practice Act. There's a reason, that explanation, there's ways that has to go, right? Typically, it's a
Right.
two-part test. That explanation has to include the facts of this case that justify this lower, compromise settlement offer, and those facts need to relate to some policy language. So one of the first questions I always ask if an insurer is not going to pay something is, what's your authority? Like, what do you mean? What's your authority for doing that? And they're like, yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the policy language that lets you do
Yeah.
that? The last adjuster a couple months ago that I asked that to on the phone, State Farm. I was like, because what he was doing was so illegal. I was like, what's your authority for doing that? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, what's the language in the policy allows you to do that? And he says, I haven't read the policy. You know? And I was like, dude, get off my phone, man. You're hilarious. You are hilarious. And that's on a first party. On a third party, when they're not making you whole, they're putting their insured at risk. Be like, cool. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sue that guy. Our family minivan is being repaired right now, and Geico just got real funny because they sat on their hands for 2 weeks while I was getting checked out after Geico told me it's repairable. The shop, I went to a certified Honda shop for our Odyssey, and they said, "Yep, here's what we need to fix it." I say, "Cool." I wait for Geico. I wait a little longer, like 9 days after the shop wrote it up. I just paid the bill. I said, cool, here, order the parts. We want our minivan back.
Right.
The rental's nice, but let's get this thing going.
Yeah.
So then 3 days later, Geico says, your van's a total loss. And I'm like, okay. The next morning at 8 in the morning, they say, by the way, today's your last day in the rental. And I'm like, you guys are
Oh,
hilarious
gosh.
because that van's getting repaired.
Yeah.
Right now, you're putting your insured at risk because I don't care what you do. And I told Geico, I said, I promise you the cheapest way forward is to just pay for these repairs. But they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
So did they pay for them or did they total it out?
I mean, that just happened this week.
Oh,
So
it just happened. Oh no. So you're
stay
not
tuned. They owe us money.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, that's something, and I'm sure you hear it constantly too. That's oddly enough, that's actually how Vista got started, was because body shop owners were making financial decisions on whether they were going to repair cars correctly because of the pushback from carriers. If they're not going to pay the full calibration cost, shops just weren't doing it. And we just have seen year over year such an increase in advancement in ADAS. There's just not you just can't not do it anymore. We're not seeing very many cars. on the road without something anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's people's lives on the line there. So it's got to be done, and we'll see how that one turns out. But to answer your question more fully, boy, if your customer just doesn't have it, then say, cool, we're going to need to hold the vehicle until your insurer wakes up. And that can work. Our documentation that we do has shown to really actually help the customer get reimbursed also. That's something that we build into the processes as well. We want to make sure that everything coming out of Coverall Law pays for itself, just like you guys do too, getting the sublet invoices.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, they can do that or they can go and they can sue. And every time we're looking at what to do and we're laying out those options for the shop, we want to help them make business decisions. I've got a saying that if it makes dollars, it makes sense. So let's help them make business decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For the shop owners listening, if there's a shop owner that's wanting to reduce their risk, is there any just advice that you would give them? Any specific thing that they should be doing?
They can always go to a local attorney and let them know, hey, I want to reduce my legal liability. What do you think? Documenting the investments, like not all shops are created equal. So if you've invested in training and you're documenting like how your team is enabled to do the right thing, you're investing in these tools that help you each step of the way. We talk about document, document, document. For us, what we build into the legal infrastructure though is, and it's the only one I've seen in the industry, actually a cap on liability. It's incredible how many folks are out there and they have this unlimited liability. And it's like there are standard things that a corporate lawyer would put into a contract that I think Coverall Law is the first to do. I mean, there are some okay contracts out there, but there's so many like just fundamental things where I'm just like, what is going on here? How do you do what you do? Document how you're able to do what you do the right thing, but protect yourself legally as well. In my experience, talking to, because we also at Coverall Law, we manage a network of attorneys across the country for when we do need to go into court. Obviously, me and my folks, we can't be in every corner of every state that we're
Right.
in. That was one of the things we had to build out in order to be able to scale. But you probably find that your local attorney doesn't know a thing about this industry. So if they do want some help, reach out to Coverall Law. I think, as we're getting bigger and growing, we've got more attorneys on. I think that we probably need to start doing maybe some events and stuff like that. I know we'll be at SEMA this year, but just kind of different things to get your head in the right spot when it comes to
Right.
liability and doing the right thing.
Do you guys have a booth at SEMA? You'll
No,
just hanging out.
I'm teaching a class. Me and Tim Ronick
Oh,
are doing a class there, and
that's
then I'll be
awesome.
presenting at the Ideas Collide for repair-driven education.
Very cool. We're talking, Vista is talking about going to SEMA. I've never been to Vegas. I've never been to SEMA. It
Have
seems very overwhelming and big, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
you ever done a CIC?
No,
Okay,
uh,
well, there's one
no,
coming up
they
in
don't.
Chicago next month.
Yeah, we do some events on occasion, but
Yeah.
we haven't really gotten super into it yet. So I
Well, you
think
should
SEMA's the
do
next
a
one.
booth.
Yeah.
Do a booth at SEMA. That'd be really good for you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do a booth. I could do a booth. I mean, I'll talk with the team about it because I don't have a vision where I see myself sitting in a booth for longer than probably about 5 or 10 minutes.
Too much sitting. I don't even know what it looks like, so I can't comment there. I have no idea. I just know
Oh, it is
every year,
massive.
I know
Yeah.
every year around October, I hear any shop that I talk to, they are talking about SEMA. So,
Yeah.
and then in November, it's very difficult to get a hold of people because they are at SEMA. I'm excited. I think it'll be good for, for us to go and just kind of see how it is, see what's out there,
Yeah.
go
That's
to a
what I did
class or
last year.
two.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're always trying to learn and grow and expand. So looking ahead, where do you see the industry going over the next few years?
Consolidation has really left it's leaving its mark. And I do not know with the big consolidators, my background in addition to law is finance. It's finance and accounting. And so just kind of looking at the system that they're building, I do not know what the long-term sustainability plan is. It's like it is not evident to me how that works. I hope that we can see a change in the consumers of understanding the importance of a safe and proper repair. It is a challenge, I think, for many shops to get the customer on board and to care when they're like, dude, I just want my car fixed. And they think a car fix is just like going and buying groceries and it's just all the same. And they really commoditize it. I see the shops that really take the reins, take control of their operation, those owners that say, I really want to be a true owner and get up and get after it. I see them winning big. Everything we're doing at Coverall Law is making sure that this industry exists for the next couple of generations. So I said, there's like a dozen attorneys that have served this industry. From what I can tell, they're pretty much all like one-off attorneys. Whereas with Coverall Law, we bring in younger attorneys, we bring in law students and stuff. We're just constantly reinvesting in it to make sure that this goes. A lot of our members are second and third generation shop owners. I love that. We now
Yeah.
signed up one that's a fourth generation shop owner.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's really cool.
Absolutely.
We
Yes.
need to see that continue. Now, being a business owner, I will tell you, for these shop owners that do really grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, and get after it, sitting in that seat, you've never felt more alive or at any moment you could die, right?
Right.
It is so much pressure and anxiety. Nobody is coming to save you, but there is a lot of help available if you just put your hand up, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that you said that because it's so true. That's something, the consolidation is something that we hear a lot about. And we see a lot of independent shops closing and selling and just not being able to make it because of consolidation, because of insurance pushback, because of just everything that's working against
Yes.
uh, the business, independent business owners in this industry.
I mean, I will tell you the reason the consolidators are buying as much as they are is because they're getting them at a song, right? To the shop owner, that feels like a chunk of money, but it's because their numbers are because this industry, I mean, take an owner in this industry who has other business owning friends in other industries and they compare numbers and they're going to feel a little sheepish.
Yeah,
That's something that Coverall Law is actively fighting. I said each one of our members can bring different parts of the law forward for the benefit of everyone else. Our labor rate case goes to trial later this summer, you know?
really, we'll have to keep up
Yeah,
with that. That's
absolutely.
interesting. That's interesting.
When you go to sell your shop, people should be lined up around the block to buy it because it's so profitable and you should be getting, a price that is indicative of how profitable it is. Instead, you've just got a couple of consolidators to say like, oh, we might want that. We could take that one and take it off your hands basically. And I just don't feel like people are getting nearly enough. And when you do get to that level of profit, you've got other options. So there are shops, we've had multiple shops use the Forever Form system to increase their revenue and sell their business. There's nothing wrong with that. It'll never be my job to tell somebody how to run their business or what to do with it. It's my job to give them options. And if a
Right.
shop comes on and says, I'm trying to sell in the next 18 months, I say, well, we better get to work then because you need to show this up there. They use the Forever Forms to get off of DRP programs so they don't need them anymore. Like, how can we empower your shop? But the only reason the consolidators are buying it right now is because they can. This is a
That's
land grab for them. They can get
right.
it cheap. And then they're saying, boy, and then down the road, we'll figure out how the heck to make this work. I think
Yeah.
they're hoping that there's some sort of tipping point where all of a sudden the insurers need them. The insurers have not felt that way so far.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And it's something I see every single day. Just exactly what you're talking about. And I love that we've gone over so much about the finances because I think that that's such a missing piece in so many independent shops, especially the ones you were just talking about the generational ones. Those are normally the old school, don't want to change. They've been doing it this way for 50 years, type of mentality. And those are the ones that typically, if body shops aren't willing to change and willing to grow and move with the market and do the things that they need to do, there's no way for them to survive. So to empower them, I love that you said that. I think it's so important for companies like Coverall Law, like Vista, who come from the collision industry, have personal experience, and that's why we're here, to empower basically our peers, right? To be able to fix cars correctly and have the profit margins that you should be having as a business owner. I saw an article, it was a while back. There was a shop, very heavy DRP, went back and looked at all of their margins, 5%. They were making 5% margins. And I'm like, how do you even stay alive like that?
Well, at that margin, like any job, if a single mistake on any job means that that job is operating at a loss.
Right.
Right? You need enough cushion built in that that is not the case. So,
yeah.
I really appreciate the time. I think it's been a great conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we should, come up with some more questions and stuff from the shops you're talking to. We can absolutely do this again. I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the time. I did. Thank you for all of your insight. It's really nice hearing from your perspective because it's definitely different than what we typically hear. So it's good to have that fresh, just fresh insight on the problems that everybody has in the industry. So, well, thank you again for your time. I appreciate you. We will definitely keep in touch. We need to do this again.
100%. It's my pleasure. Have a good rest of your day, okay?
All right.